Hi everybody! What we are going to do today is we are going to make neurographic sunflowers. Now when you do your neurographic picture, it doesn't necessarily have to be sunflowers or anything like that. It could be leaves, it could be other detailed pictures. The idea is you want to make sure that you have lots of details. So it's not just a circle with some things coming out of it like a little kid would do a sunflower. So what you'll do is you start off and you're going to draw it out. Now, when you draw it, I'll enlarge it here so you can see a little bit. The idea is to make it somewhat as realistic as possible. Now, because when we do the painting isn't as realistic, it's going to make a difference. So it helps if your picture is more realistic to begin with. You usually have better results. So what I did is I drew out my sunflower. And then what you'll do is once everything is drawn out, whatever it is you decide to draw should take up the whole entire paper. So it shouldn't be just one small thing in the middle. It should be, all kinds of different pictures. Once you have that done, you're going to start to paint. And with watercolors, I usually tell people, so if I start off in the edge here, the idea is to start off really, really light. So like you can hardly see the paint. Okay, if you do it and it's too dark, you can kind of lighten it up with water. The other things that are really fun to do is to mix your own colors. You don't have to use just the colors that come out of the tray. So I could take yellow and mix it over here, and then I could mix some orange in with it, and I could make my own shade of like a yellow orange, and then I could go and I can paint it next to the other color. Now, one of the things that I want to point out is if you see on here, when I go to paint in the flower, I don't paint in like the whole petal or the whole section a color. What I like to do is I make it kind of like blobs of color. It's going to make it easier when you do the neurographic portion, when you do the outlining. So what I would do is when you go to fill in these spaces, just do like maybe like a chunk of color here, chunk of color here. You can still leave some white spaces, then that's going to be just fine. I could mix and I could do different shades of colors. So I could do like a darker, like I could almost have like a red in here. Some of the things too that you need to keep in mind is watercolor. You need to have time in between for dry time. So a lot of times when you're working on this, you'll get a section complete and then you'll have to sit and you'll have to wait for it to dry. So usually what I recommend is you start with a basic part in the middle of your paper, and then you can start working out from there, and then that'll help give the other stuff dry time, and then also you to be able to finish up your picture. Now, let's say I have everything painted in. The goal is to do at least 3 layers of paint and have at least 3 colors in each section of your picture. If you don't, a lot of times it's going to look kind of flat and it's going to be harder to do the other portions. Now on these parts, like this part is dry, on your basic picture that you drew out, you're going to take and you're going to outline with a regular thick Sharpie. So just like you would regularly do, just outlining everything. Okay. Once I'm done with that, what you'll do is you can use an extra fine point Sharpie, or I just have a pen, which works too, and you have to make sure that everything here is dry to the touch, otherwise it'll kind of wreck your pen. But the idea is you're going to take in the inside, and everywhere, if my pen could work here, every time the color changes in each section, you're going to make an outline. And so in some of these spots, sorry, my pen is dying out here, you'll make a whole bunch. So let's say this is light, a thin one, just so you can kind of see. But in here, so if this was the outline, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to look through this color. So that's where the yellow is, that's where the orange is, and then there's a couple spots that actually just got orange by accident, because a lot of times, like with watercolor, it's a lot harder to control, and so sometimes it'll go outside the lines. Now the cool part is even if it does go outside the lines, it goes with the neurographic idea, and so it still works out. Now, if you did your painting and the colors blended really well, so you just have this really nice blend, you still have to kind of figure out where those colors would be different and make some lines, okay? The goal is that when you're done, you get this really neat looking picture with the outlines that are dark, make it kind of pop so you can see it a little bit more, and then the inside parts give it extra dimension. Now, when you're doing this, you can choose how you'd like to do this. So on this particular picture, I did the neurographic part on the inside. on just the objects that I drew. Some people like to do the neurographic part on just the outside because they like their picture to look more realistic. Some people like the whole entire picture to have the neurograph form to it, just because they like the look of it. But if you even look, like even in the background, I never painted anything a solid color. Everything is kind of blotchy, and they kind of run together. So the goal is to finish and have a nice neurographic painting that is kind of abstract, but you can still tell exactly what it is. And it's kind of nice because if you do screw up with the watercolor, it's very forgiving and it's an easy fix.